Welcome to the Masterful Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Molly Claire, and I'm here to help you master your coaching skills so you can become the confident, effective, and transformative guide your clients and your team are craving. Whether you're a coach, a high-level leader, or an ambitious go-getter ready to transform your own life, you're in the right place. On this podcast, we dive deep into the skills, mindset, and strategies that make the biggest difference when it comes to your coaching, your business, and your impact. And we do all of it while making sure that you're building a life and business that truly fits you. Let's go ahead and get started with this week's episode. Hello, coaches. I have an awesome episode for you today. I was thrilled to be interviewed by one of my very own Master Coach Training clients, Heidi Allsop. Her podcast is incredible. It is called Raising Boys, Building Men. And today's episode is a rebroadcast of that interview that I had with Heidi. And we really talk about taking a look at emotions within parenting, emotions for these young boys. And truly, this conversation, whether you're a mom or not, whether you have boys or not, is going to give you incredible insights into our emotional world as human beings. I know you are going to love it. By the way, big news, we've got a live workshop coming up later this month. So please check it out in the show notes. There is a link here where you can sign up to join the free live webinar where I will be teaching about the 4 fundamentals of lasting change. You've heard about them here on the podcast, and I love the opportunity to speak and teach live with you so I truly can answer all of your questions. So if you are serious about creating lasting change for you and for your clients, make sure to sign up for this live webinar where I will be working with you there to help you truly understand and implement these fundamentals. All right, let's go ahead and get started with this amazing rebroadcast of an interview with Heidi Allsop.
Welcome back to this episode of Raising Boys, Building Men. I'm so glad you're here. And you're going to be so glad you're here because we have a really great episode for you today. We are diving into all things emotions and teenage boys, which touches every one of us moms in a unique way and a different way. Every mom experiences her teenage son in a different way. So we are going to dive into all things emotions today, and I'm thrilled that you're here. I'm also thrilled to be joined by my coach, my mentor, and my dear friend, Molly Claire. Thank you. Thank you for coming, Molly. So glad you're here.
Such an honor to be here. So glad to be here and always in support of women trying our very best, right, to raise these kids and not just survive, but thrive. So
yes.
So happy.
So I want to tell the listeners a little bit about you, Molly, because you are amazing in every way and have done so much. You are a master coach instructor, founder of Holistic Master Coach Training. You have a top-ranked podcast, The Masterful Coach, and you're a best-selling author, which we don't talk about very much, of the book, The Happy Mom Mindset. And most important, you're the mom of 3 adorable, adorable kids, 2 young adult boys and a teenage girl. So you know firsthand. And I talk on this podcast a lot about it's important that when we talk about boys and we get advice from people and we get guidance that they've lived this and you have lived this. You've had 2 teenage boys, so you know firsthand what it's like to navigate boys and their teenage years and all of the emotions that come with it. So you're amazing. I'm so glad you're here. I have to say when we start that this is like a full circle moment because years ago when I had not even decided to pursue life coaching as a career, I heard you give a class, Molly, on emotions. You don't know this. I haven't told you this.
I don't know this. Okay.
I heard you give a class on emotions, and I remember thinking, this lady gets it. Like, you understand. It just spoke to me in a way that I hadn't thought about before. And it was one of the reasons I chose to have coaching as a profession. And so now here you are on my
Oh my
podcast
gosh.
talking about emotions.
Oh
So
my gosh. I did
full
not know
circle.
that. I'm so honored and
Yeah,
yeah, so
so
great.
glad you're here. So I want to maximize all of the time that we have with you today, Molly. Um, and I really want to turn this over to you because you have so much wisdom to share. What what my listeners, the feedback that I have been getting is on both ends of the spectrum. So when we're talking about teenage boys and their emotions, sometimes it's big, loud emotions, and those emotions present themselves in angry outbursts because anger is really an easy emotion for teenage boys to express. And so a lot of those bubbling up emotions will come out in that anger. And on the completely opposite end of the spectrum is those teenage boys who do have a lot of emotions coming up, but they stay silent and they're
Mhm.
quiet. And we just don't know what they're thinking. And so, as a mom, trying to navigate where are we today with these
Mhm.
emotions, it can be difficult. So,
Mhm.
I really want to hand this over to you and let you kind of speak to that. What do we do as moms? How do we help them learn about their emotions and navigate those emotions so they can become great men and
Mhm.
be able to keep that connection with them as they're learning and growing and developing through those years?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so much to say about this, but I'll start out. One of the things that you said was kind of trying to take the temperature, like, right? Okay, where are we today? Are we up? Are we down? Or? And I think that as moms, and it really in every area of our life and every relationship, right? A better question to ask ourselves is, where am I today? Where am I today? Because we can have this idea that that we need to be gauging the people around us, right? Or our child, or even maybe believing, if there, especially if there's this fear underneath, that we won't know how to respond properly, we won't know how to react. We believe there's a certain thing that we should do depending on what mood they're in. What we end up doing is we end up really putting so much of the focus on trying to be a detective about something going on outside of us, and it's just not really, it's not useful, and it's anxiety producing, and it's not really the answer or the solution. And so, and I know there's more to this and we can speak to it, but the first thing I want to say is, for all of you listening, when you wake up in the morning, take the time to say, what's my temperature? How am I doing? And I think the more we can, and this is a bigger topic, right? But the more as women and as moms, we can pay attention to how we feel. We can make sure that we're attending to our needs, and we're creating practices for ourselves where we're creating better emotional regulation. That's the foundation we need to bring no matter what mood they're in, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And I think when we bring that to Molly, we're doing two things. We're teaching them how to care for their needs, how to take their own temperature just by watching us. And
that's
we
right.
are also presenting as that more calm, confident, capable mom that
Yeah.
is very sure of who she is.
Yes, and I'll speak to both of those. I mean, it's like I'll speak to the second one first. And that is that what we don't realize is that the more grounded we are, right? The more calm, the more relaxed, the more settled I am, the more access I will have to my prefrontal cortex, right? Which is the part of my brain that makes decisions, that plans ahead, right? That is strategic. It's an important part of our brain. And what we don't realize is much of that goes offline when we're activated, right? And so, yes, we're not only is it positive for us to show up feeling calm, but it actually creates a foundation for us to behave and think and act in the best possible ways, right? So there's that piece of it. And the other thing, that Heidi, that you brought up, which is so relevant, and I want all of your listeners to think about, like, if they maybe relate to this. So I think that, of course, as moms, we want to teach our kids, right? We want to teach them to understand how to connect with their emotions. And I think, especially as women and moms of boys, we want for them to have the emotional skills they need to be in a healthy relationship, right? And so we can get pretty caught up in thinking, well, I need to make sure that they understand emotions and they're addressing their emotions. I need to fix this. We can get kind of caught up in this to-do list of what we need to do with them or for them. And I think what's more useful than that, along these lines, and to your point, is that when you as a mom, and when I, right, when we can really attend to our own emotions, our own nervous system, when we can be more grounded and we can engage with our emotions in a better way. And here's the reality of it. I teach this for a living. Heidi teaches this. And all of us here, all of you listening, Heidi, me, we all still have growth and work to do emotionally. So when we are each engaged in that for ourselves, it really is the best way to teach our kids, because there is only so much amount of doing we can do with our kids. And the most powerful thing is, as we create this container of space for us to learn more about our emotions, attend to our emotions, learn how to engage in healthy ways emotionally with them, we're modeling it. And just by creating that calm, safe space with them, naturally, they will take it in from us. They will learn from us, and they will be able to develop those things as they're modeled and as they're experiencing them. So I think that's one thing. We might have less to do in terms of meddling in what we're teaching them or what they're doing, and much more to do by coming to ourselves and working with our own emotions and learning.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could not agree more. And that's why I love speaking to the moms, because I think the moms are the key. And it, as you're speaking, it reminds me of when we're driving in a car. And sometimes when we drive in the car and our teenagers in there, we can not speak and it's okay. There's not a problem. And sometimes when we're driving in the car and we're mad about something, there's that tension between us. So I kind of envision that as you're speaking, that if we're calm, if we
Mm-hmm.
are taking care of our emotions, it's like when you're driving in the car and you don't have to speak, but both of you are just completely fine and calm. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like that comfortable silence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When we are doing our part, they're more connected with us and more apt to talk to us, the more apt to feel comfortable when they
Yeah.
do need to come to us, because we are not activated. We're really in that space of comfort and calm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just worth saying, because let's face it, as moms, we're always so quick to think that we should behave more perfectly, or we should be more calm. And now maybe some people are thinking, oh, it's all my fault, or they're blaming themselves. Let's just collectively decide that we're not going to do that, because we're all human and it's okay. It's not a big deal. And what instead we want to focus on is, how can I learn more about my own emotional state? How can I be proactive with that, right?
Mhm.
But one of the things that you said, Heidi, that I think is worth mentioning to all of you listening is this idea of, right, safety, them feeling safe in talking to you. So, of course, I train coaches, and I've done several different training programs. And at the beginning of every one of my trainings, first and foremost, what I teach my coaches is that the number one indicator of success in terms of what their clients will experience or achieve with them, meaning, right, like, so if a client has hired a coach and they're looking for a certain result, the number one indicator is not necessarily the exact path or the exact way. The number one indicator of success is how what the relationship and connection is between client and coach. And the same thing is true in the therapy world. And it's not to say that the methods and modalities aren't important, they are. But it's that sense of safety because it allows people to have a sense of trust in their coach. And so this is extremely relevant to us as moms because doesn't it make sense that if, as a mom, you are hoping that your child, that your son will be receptive, that they will desire to come to you, that they will trust you, that they will rely on you, it means that we need to be a safe space for them, right? They need to feel connected in that relationship. And I think if nothing else, if there's one takeaway from our conversation today, it can be, how can I potentially just take one small step to improve the space between my son and I, and how safe he feels, how comfortable he feels, how at ease he feels in conversation with me, and how that connection is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love that so much. And I think one of the ways that we can create that safety, and you talk about this so much, is to meet them where they are. And
Yes.
we can do that physically. I've talked about this before. Sometimes we need to go to where he's playing Xbox and just sit by him and
Mhm.
pop some popcorn and watch him play. Sometimes we need to go to his room if he's doesn't want to come out of his room and join the family. Sometimes physically
Mhm.
we really do need to meet them where they are, but emotionally as well.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
not guessing where they are, but really meeting them where they we want them to be here, and sometimes they're
Mhm.
not. And that safety is generated by us meeting them where they are and guiding them along.
Yes, yes. And I want to share with you a really powerful question that moms can use. And right along with it, I'll share a story that was not a great parenting moment for me, not a great mom moment, but something that I'm really glad that it happened because it's really, has stuck with me. Um, so of course, I'm a coach, right? I'm all about helping people to achieve what they want and believe in themselves and go for it. And that's kind of the energy that I bring as a mom as well, right? Like I want to help my kids and empower them, and that's fantastic, right? That's fantastic. I think it's great. And I remember a conversation with one of my boys, and I here I am trying to be helpful, and and he's a musician, right? And I was like, okay, like, what can I do to help you? Could we do this? And so these are all well intended things, but thank goodness that my son said this to me. He said, Mom, it'd be really nice. Sometimes it would be really nice if you would just be with me and not help me create a plan or not help me do something, just be with me. And I recognize that there are probably a lot of listeners thinking, well, it'd be really nice if my son would tell me, right? I'm grateful that he did. And it was a moment for me to realize that something that I have always struggled with is just being really being able to be present and just kind of sit back and relax and have those conversations. And I think it's okay that that's a challenge for me, right? It doesn't mean I'm bad or wrong, but it's something that I'm grateful that he brought to my attention. So what does this have to do with your listeners in this question? So we all know our boys are not always going to say this is what I need. And I think one of the best questions that I use regularly is um, what would be most helpful right now? Or something along the lines of, what do you need? What would feel supportive? And and then here's the kicker, right? We have to trust the answer that they give us. Because if they say nothing, that has to be okay, right? Okay. Well, if that changes, let me know.
Well, and I love that end of that. If that changes, let me know, because sometimes I have some of my boys that would be able to process that and give me an answer. And I have some that want to think about that
Yep.
and giving them permission to let me know later. I love those questions so much. One question that I often have my clients ask is, how do you know that I love you?
Oh
Because
gosh, I
I
love that.
may think that it's because I make dinner every night and
Hmm.
I'm feeding his friends. I may think it's that. And he may say, I feel your love best, or I know that you love me because you take me to get a soda on Friday afternoon.
Hmm.
And now I
Hmm.
know, oh my goodness, I want to do more of that. I
That's
don't
right.
need to wear myself out doing all of it. I want to do more of what he feels is connecting and loving. And so
That's
I think
right.
that's another question that's really powerful because
Yes,
sometimes we assume this is where they are.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
and sometimes we're right, but often we're not. And we want to check in a way that doesn't throw them into defensiveness, but is really like, how do you know I love you?
Hmm.
And that's just such a
Hmm.
soft question
It
and can
is.
get them thinking.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. And another thing that I want to add to this conversation about, the idea of asking these questions, asking, how do you know I love you? Or asking, what do you need? What would be most supportive of you? Is that it may be that at first they don't really know. And that's not only is that okay, but that's really important because the more I ask, if we're thinking about this in terms of building the relationship and also building emotional skills, teaching emotional skills, when I ask my son, what do you need? Or what would be most helpful for you? And if I ask that over and over again, not in a row, that would be annoying. But if that's something that I'm regularly asking, what it starts to teach them is it creates a brain pattern for them where it is normal to think about what their needs are. And so what this creates in the long term is that we are teaching them to become a man who pays attention to what his needs are and hopefully speaks them. And what a lot of women don't realize is that the sometimes we may, look at a man or look at our husband and see things that we perceive as selfish, and we might think, well, the last thing they need to be is to be more aware of their own needs. But in actuality, just like women, men are not exempt from really ignoring the true emotional needs they have and not asking for them. And that's why they end up behaving in not very helpful ways, just like we do as women, right? So, all that being said, I know that's kind of a little bit of a detour, but when you ask your boys, right, like, what do you need or what would be most helpful and supportive, you're teaching them to get to know themselves. You're teaching them to get to know their needs, get to know their feelings. And that, in and of itself, cultivates emotional connection within them and begins to lay the foundation of emotional growth and maturity. So it's a small question, but it has a pretty profound effect in a lot of ways.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because you're right. That is the teaching. And we as moms, we want to teach them. We feel that responsibility. And it's so refreshing to know that it's the simple questions that get them thinking that is
Mm-hmm.
actually the most effective teacher.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most
Mm-hmm.
effective teaching tool that we can use in helping them grow and develop into that man that we see. They just don't see it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that. That's so good.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
Molly. Oh, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say because my daughter's voice is coming to my head. So of course my boys are grown and my daughter's 14, and our conversations when she's having, big emotions are always a bit entertaining, especially in retrospect, because, I'll be trying all my best things, right? Where it's like, it doesn't matter if I give a solution or if I deeply empathize. Sometimes she'll say, just stop. That's not even helpful, right? That's what she says. And you know what? It's like, here's what I'll say. And this kind of relates as well to the anger that you were talking about, right? That the teenage boys and expressing anger. I think a couple of things. I think one is absolutely, if the behavior toward us is not okay, then we want to uphold respectful boundaries because that's respectful to us, it's respectful to them, and it is potentially respectful to their future partners, right? So absolutely, if there is inappropriate behavior toward us, we don't need to get activated about it. We don't need to be angry or take it personal, but we can say, "Hey, please don't speak to me that way," right? So there's that. And we also have to be okay with them giving feedback, right? About that and taking it in. And so like with my daughter, a lot of times I'll say, "Well, what would be helpful?" And sometimes she'll say, "Nothing would be helpful. Nothing can fix this." And that's when you just write, "Okay, well, I'm here," or if you need something, right? And you just have to let it be. And so I think that's one of the big things is we just cannot get sucked in to anything, right? We got to just stay grounded and just know, and this is the truth of it with teenagers and hormones going every which way up and down, like we got to just let it flow a little bit. Set those boundaries and let it flow.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things we need to remember too is we most likely are that person that they do feel the most safe with. So we will be the one that they lash out to
Mhm.
the most
Mhm.
likely, right? Because
Mhm.
we lash out to those people we feel safe with and not taking that personal. That's
Mhm.
hard sometimes, but so
Oh, I
important.
know.
Yeah.
I know, right? And it's that place of not taking it personally and also making sure we're respecting ourselves, right?
Mhm.
Because if if there's a difference between understanding, yes, emotions are going to come, yes, angry outbursts are going to come, it's not personal, and saying, "Oh, yes, this is going to come, so I'm just going to allow myself to be treated anyway," right? Because that's unhealthy and unhelpful in a different way.
Right. And unhelpful for their life. I kind of think of it when you go bowling, you take your kids bowling for the first time and they put the bumper pads up.
Yeah.
And that ball can bounce off those bumper pads. And I think of our settings, our restrictions, our boundaries like those bumper pads. Hey, listen,
Yeah.
we have a leeway in here, but we don't go past these
Yeah.
two sections
Yeah.
because that's not okay. We don't treat people like that, especially our moms.
Yeah.
Okay, Molly, can we talk for a few minutes about fear? I think fear is something that often I know myself and I know a lot of my listeners, we parent from fear. We're just scared.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to
Mm-hmm.
school, they're
Mm-hmm.
not getting good grades. They
Mm-hmm.
are struggling socially. They won't get off of their phone. Like we go
Mm-hmm.
down the line and to the future and what happens is we get scared of what could happen. And so now we start parenting from fear instead of confidence. And I'm guilty of
Mm-hmm.
it. Maybe you are guilty of it too. I think everybody at some point, we're scared that
Mm-hmm.
they're going to do
Mm-hmm.
something that really is going to impact their life. And so then
Mm-hmm.
we start parenting
Mm-hmm.
from that place. How
Mm-hmm.
do we
Mm-hmm.
attend to our emotions, keep ourselves in a calm
Mm-hmm.
place when we are so scared?
Mm-hmm. Well, before I address what we do with that fear, I want to say that our kids will do things in their lives
Oh, yes.
that are detrimental to them.
Mhm.
Our kids will experience pain, sadness, consequences for their own choices that that can be beyond difficult for them and for us as parents. And I think this right here is one of the big things that we not only need to hear right now, but over and over again, we need to remind ourselves of this and let go of believing that we could or should control it because we really can't. And it's really not the best thing for our kids. And so I think that I think the acceptance of that and the understanding of that, which by the way isn't easy, right? And that's why people hire coaches. That's why they hire someone like you right? To help with that because it's easier said than done. But the problem is that if we are so fearful about what they might do or believing that we should prevent it, it ends up, um, as you said, really putting us in a place of parenting from trying to control, not only even just control our child, but control life and control everything that happens. And that's not a healthy place for us to be in. And ultimately, we're not really empowering our children to make and own choices. And what we're also communicating to them is a lack of trust in them. And so, you know, I know when I think about what I hope to impart in my children, I hope that I create a sense of self trust in them, that they feel confident in themselves, that they know who they are, that they're not afraid to take steps in their life to move forward. Like these are things I want for my kids. And if I'm trying to control or kind of keep things really small, or I'm trying to if I'm essentially communicating to them that that they can't really be trusted in life, that's not very empowering. And it ends up creating a power struggle. And who wants to think that their parent doesn't believe in them? So I know this is a bit of an answer to your question, and I recognize that there are also places like as parents, we teach, we guide, we set limits, there are boundaries. And so this is not to eliminate all of that, but just to say that how important it is that we accept the fact that our kids will experience a lot of pain. And the best thing we can do for our kids is be grounded and confident in what we bring as a parent, and really sift through what is my responsibility in terms of what I'm offering and how I'm showing up, and what is ultimately up to my child as far as what they do with this. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. It's like we have this ability to access perspective. We do have more perspective than they do. And so we can, if we pan out a little bit, access that perspective and realize that this is not a great decision they're making now. And what can they learn from it? How can they move forward? What can this teach them if I allow that to happen?
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
be that can be one of the greatest gifts that we give them is the
It
opportunity
is.
to feel the consequences of their behaviors. Now, once again, right, we want to keep a close eye on that. We don't want a consequence that is going to be life changing. Maybe sometimes we do step in, but for the most part, the school and the phone, the things like that, the mistakes that they're making, they can learn so much more from if we allow it than if we
Hmm.
step in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, one of the things I know, so in my book, The Happy Mom Mindset, there's a specific exercise in the workbook that goes along with it that has moms look at, okay, what can I like, where is my responsibility as a parent and where is their responsibility? Because I think the more we can stay in our lane and understand that difference, I think that's when we can show up with powerful guidance and boundaries while also allowing appropriate space and freedom for kids to make choices and ultimately accept whatever comes as a result.
So
Yeah.
good. And one more thing about fear, I'm just thinking back on um, as I've been learning this and really intentionally not parenting from fear. Sometimes I have to go in another room and just acknowledge this. I'm feeling scared, and I
Absolutely.
don't have to be afraid of this fear. It's
Mm.
okay. I'm the
Hmm.
mom. I I see potential heartache, and I don't need to be afraid of that. And I just sit with myself in that fear for a few minutes and realize that I don't have to be afraid of this emotion.
Hmm.
And I kind of collect myself, and
Hmm.
then I can go out and be the mom that I want to be.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes, and that's part that goes back to what you were talking about in the beginning, is just taking our own temperature, taking our
That's
own
right.
emotional temperature. And sometimes we do that best when we remove ourselves, we ask ourselves some good questions, and we take just a few
Absolutely.
minutes caring and bringing down our own emotional temperature to a place where we can then go out and behave in a way that we really want to.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
so good.
And let's just acknowledge, like, parenting isn't, this is not easy, right? We're human, and then we
Mhm.
have all these humans that we birth, and they're all completely different. And it's just, so thank goodness we can all support each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that because I think a lot of times we recognize the grace that we give our kids, right? They anything can be fixed with an I'm so sorry, mom. And they give us a lot of grace too. It's part of the relationship. And there's
Yeah.
just
Love
so
that.
much grace going around. They just want to love
Mm,
us and we just want to love them. And
mm,
we are going to
mm-hmm,
mess up. And so are they. And that's
mm-hmm.
kind of part of the beauty of the relationship is that
Yep.
they are so quick to forgive us and we are so quick to forgive them. And what a beautiful part of that relationship
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
get to experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Molly, I have one more question, and then I want you to tell everyone where they can get more Molly Claire. Here's my
Okay.
question. Sometimes, as moms, and you know this, I know this, we fall very quickly into guilt and overwhelm.
Mm,
What can they take away from this call, from this episode? That's just one simple step. Like, what's
mm,
one
mhm.
simple step that they can take to feel better emotionally, to connect emotionally with their son? What's that simple thing that they can do, that we can all do?
Mhm. Mhm. Um, I'll admit my brain is going. She talked about guilt and overwhelm, so I'm like, okay, like I'm trying to figure out where I'll focus. I'm just gonna say something about both of them, and then
Okay,
everyone just
perfect.
take from this podcast whatever you want, okay? So, as far as overwhelm, I just want to tell you that living your life in a state of overwhelm is not healthy for you and it's not helpful for anyone. And so, if you're feeling that sense of overwhelm, just take a minute every day for the next couple of weeks and set a timer on your phone or whatever in the morning, right? And just ask yourself, what can I do for myself today to be a little less overwhelmed? And I think just that simple question is introducing the idea to us that we don't necessarily have to feel that way. And it is inviting this continued conversation with ourselves to bring the overwhelm down. Okay, you want me to say something about guilt?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If there's one
So,
universal mothering emotion, it's
oh
guilt.
my gosh, right? Okay, so here's what I have to say about guilt. Take notes on this, okay? I categorize guilt in I put it into two categories. There's useful guilt and there is useless guilt. Useful guilt is if I have screamed at you, Heidi, and I have said something unkind to you, I will feel guilty and thank goodness that I will because I am going to feel remorse and I will come to you and I will apologize and I will make changes to improve. That is the kind of guilt that is very helpful and important for us so that we evolve as human beings and we treat people respectfully. Then there's useless guilt. And I'm going to say 99% of the guilt that moms feel is useless guilt. And what this is this idea that is like perpetually spinning in our mind that we should have done more, that we messed up, that everything is our fault. And so just be aware that if you are feeling this kind of constant guilt around these things, really question if it's necessary, really question if it's helpful, because unless the guilt is actually creating a powerful shift in you, it's not useful. How's that?
It's so good. So good. And we have enough. We don't need to keep
Oh my
useless
gosh.
things.
The amount of things we think we should be doing and accomplishing and whatever as a mom, it's unbelievable. It's such an unfair amount of stuff to put on any human being. So we really have to allow ourselves to just be human.
Absolutely.
It's too much.
Absolutely. This is so good. One of the emotions that I just want most for my listeners to feel at the end of an episode is hope. And
Yes.
you gave that to us as a gift today. Thank you so much. Okay,
Mm.
Molly, where can we find more of you? We've mentioned your book, which is so good.
Yeah,
The
the
happy, yeah, the
the
happy mom
happy mom
mindset.
mindset. Yes. So when I first started, like this is a, a book when I was working specifically with moms. It's on Amazon. It's got a workbook. I use it all the time for myself still. So the happy mom mindset, easy to find. As far as someone interested in learning more about the work that I do, you can just go to mollyclaire.com. And so I have a couple of free trainings there about how to cultivate lasting change, where I talk about why it is we don't make the changes that we want and what needs to happen instead. And then there's also a free training there for coaches. So I don't, many of your listeners are probably not coaches, but if you are, definitely go to mollyclaire.com, check out those freebies. People can find me on the Masterful Coach podcast. And yeah, and I'm on Instagram as Molly Claire Coaching. So if anyone's interested, that's where you can check it out. And I do have some awesome free trainings.
Yeah, so good. I just adore you, Molly, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your emotional wisdom with us because not only do you talk about this, but you really practice it. And I appreciate that so much and have learned so much from you. So thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're
And
welcome. I will
appreciate
continue to be practicing it till the end of my life because that's what it is. It's a practice of working with our emotions and
it
ourselves.
is. It is. And the humanness,
That's right.
accessing the humanness of we're just everybody's doing their best. And that's
Yes.
one thing that I say to my listeners every single podcast episode is moms, you're doing better than you think. Hang in
Mm-hmm.
there. You're doing great. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you, Molly. Thank you for joining us today. And we'll see all of you on the next episode.
That's it for today's episode of the Masterful Coach podcast. If you found this valuable, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you take a moment to leave a review, I would truly appreciate it. It helps more coaches and leaders find this podcast so they can grow right alongside us. Make sure to check out www.mollyclaire.com for the latest offerings in advanced trainings and coaching mastery. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk with you next week.